All right. Well, it's always fun when you can have a previous guest back on the show, and you've already done that because you've already done their backstory. You know what to expect with how they're going to be in interviews. It's a much more laid back and fun interview, which hopefully makes it more enjoyable for you all as well. So it's great to have Ace Von Johnson back on the show. You know Ace from his time in several punk bands, as well as Faster Pussycat and now LA Guns. And he's teased another supergroup project that he can't announce yet. But what we can announce is that LA Guns is back with a new album titled Black Diamonds. Comes out April 14th, and they'll be doing a string of shows as well. And we're going to discuss the new album, Ace's experience at the recent RocknPod event that we just went to, dealing with trolls, rescuing Pitbulls, and so much more. Stay right there.
Yeah, you want to start from the top?
Yeah. Well, hey, welcome to the show, Ace Von Johnson. How the hell are you? Haven't seen you in a long time.
Couple days. So long since I've seen you, Chuck.
Yeah.
Man, it's not like we've seen each other twice this week or already been catching up off air. I'm good, right. Man. Nice to see you again. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, RocknPod. It was interesting. How is it for you? Because I think if I remember correctly, you're not a fan of the meet and greets and all the people, and you need booze.
No, that's not true. I don't mind a meet and greet or talking. I actually had a really good time both Friday night and Saturday at the actual convention. I'm just I have some intrepidation about just being kind of thrown to the wolves at times. And I have found in my adult years that maybe a cocktail or two helps me sort of get out of my own head and worry less about, what do they call it? Social lubricant. And so I've found that for me, that's unfortunately, not that I'm advocating alcoholism, but I have found that to calm my nerves, whether it's doing a random jam with people I haven't quite met yet, or being thrown into a room full of people to make small talk and take selfies with, maybe a cocktail might help. That being said, Saturday I was completely sober. I was not drinking at all, and I had a really good time. And then Friday I was definitely drinking all of it, and I had an equally good time. So yin and yang, right? Some balance.
Yeah. Well, how was it doing the jam session? I'll ask about that one first, because I felt like it went so smooth. My buddy that I was with, Rob Lane, just straight to video, who you met, he was saying, he's like, oh, dude, this thing's going to go to like 1 a.m. Like, he's like, I've been at jam sessions before. It's like, you got to set everything up in between songs. And that was just like 2 songs, boom, next people, 2 songs. And there was not a lot of setting up and such.
I think Tyson Leslie, who organizes that Rare Hair event, has been doing it for so long, and sort of with some layover or overlap with the guys from the Rock and Roll Residency, some of whom are involved and whatnot. I think they've really learned how to facilitate an event like that expediently and professionally and all that stuff. And if anything, it might have been one of the few times where a jam was slated to start at 8:00, and then this song's at 8:42, and this song's at 9:12, and this song's at 10:52, and they were running early. That's something I've seldom seen. Mostly, I think Courtney Cronin-Dold and Don Jameson and whoever else were sort of hosting in between, so that while people are setting up or plugging in or tuning or whatever in between lineups, they would go, this is so and so from such and such band. They kept it pretty short and sweet. There wasn't a lot of like rapping about nonsense, and the evening ended up. I think they were, at least the last song I played was early, so which was maybe in the second or third, the last third of the evening. So it went well, and it was very professionally done. And I also think that all things considered, there was maybe I think there was 20 songs, and it was basically batches of 2 at a time. So let's say 10 lineups. So it was relatively easy to keep things going at a fluid pace, rather than, I know they've had nights where it was like over 100 players and things get muddled and whatnot. So, but it was
typically with the jam sessions, there's no rehearsal, right? You've never played with those people before.
Most of the time. I mean, each person in their own scenario is pretty unique usually, but, it's called a jam for a reason. And I had only been on stage with Jeremy Asbrock of the two sort of groups of people I played with. Oh, and I've been on stage with Tyson as well. But for the most part, it was people I hadn't jammed with or even really just met sort of like while walking on stage. And with the exception of Jeremy, obviously, and Tuck Smith, who sang Surrender, we did towards the end of the night, which was a blast.
Yeah,
But
he's really talented. I want to have him on my show.
you should. Yeah, Tuck's a great guy, really great singer, songwriter. What's a good word? Lothario or whatever, I don't know.
Is he Nashville based?
Yeah, he's an Atlanta guy originally, but he migrated out here not too long ago.
Do you see a lot of musicians at the Nashville? I know you don't go out a lot, but do you ever go out to, I think, is Mooney's? Is that the only rock bar in Nashville? That's what I'm told.
No, I'm not even familiar with Mooney's, to be honest. I mean, when you say rock bar, it's kind of hard to pin that down. There's a cool rock bar in like the touristy part of town, downtown, called Bowie's.
Or Bowie's, maybe that's the one I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I don't make it down there very often just because of where it is, but it is a really cool venue. That's very rock friendly. They do a lot of, I think there's probably bands playing in there like 7 nights a week. And then there's a cool, like, dare I say, like rainbow-esque sort of dive bar in East Nash called the Cobra. That's got a venue in the side building, and then the front's just a total dive bar, punk rock and heavy metal. And, they have like metal Monday nights, guys DJ and play like, Flotsam and Jetsam and stuff like that.
Oh, that's really cool. Do you ever go to, I've been in Nashville. This is my third time. I never went to Printer's Alley until this time. Have you ever been there? That's kind of a cool little like side part of Nashville.
Yeah. I mean, Nashville's like any other major city where like you walk 5 blocks downtown and it's a completely different thing. I think everybody just thinks of like Tootsie's and the whole like little touristy area, Broadway and everything. And there's so much more to the city than that. But there's no shortage of stuff to do. And if you're a fan of music, we got it. I mean, it's Music City, but I think it's no secret now, but even for the last 20 years, it's been way more than just country, bluegrass and Western music. It's definitely, if you're into punk rock or you're into heavy metal or you're into club music or whatever else, there's definitely something for you here as well.
It's good for musicians to be there too, right? Because of the networking stuff. There's so many other, like you got Rachel Bolan, John Corabi, Paul Taylor, who was there, yourself, so many others that, I mean, do you guys network a lot and get together and write things? And
yeah, I mean, I've gotten together with a few people to write, Tony Higbee and a couple other people. Like I think I said, not any of the gentlemen you mentioned, but yeah, they're all here. And, I didn't really move here to do music-based stuff. I moved here more just because my social circle sort of migrated here. And the story I tell is every time I came to Nashville, I'd be like, dude, Chuck, what are you doing here? And you'd be like, oh, I moved here 3 years ago. And so it just kept escalating. And the more I realized I was enjoying living in Los Angeles, which is where I'm, from originally, less and less. And my money went, what's the opposite of further and further? Less and less, I guess. For what I had and was paying for my apartment in L.A., I've got a 2-story, 2-bed house, on some property here. And, Ian Karabi's down the street from me, John's son, a buddy of mine is a photographer, is at the end of the street. Tony Higbee's about 1.5 miles up the road. My buddy Josh Portman from Yellow Card, he's a really close friend. He's about a 5-minute drive, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it just made sense to kind of come out here. But yeah, it is a great music community for all genres. And definitely, I feel like this is the hub of writers getting together. I mean, I would love to work with Paul Taylor and a couple of those guys, but one thing at a time, I guess.
Sure. Well, we got to talk about the new album.
Sure.
It's called Black Diamonds. Now, I know that Tracy obviously wrote a majority of the songs, but you got one song, right?
Yeah, I've got writing credit throughout the record, et cetera, but the one song that I brought in solely, that was mine.
Can I guess what it is?
You sure?
Okay. Is it Got It Wrong?
No.
Is it Low Life?
No.
Is it like a drug?
Yes.
Okay, well, I eventually got there. Yeah, I felt like the kind of the more punk songs were in the second half of the record, and so the first one I think was like Got It Wrong. I was like, whoa, this one's really punk. I wonder if this is Ace's song. Okay.
No, if anything, I try to not bring in any sort of punk rock songs for the record. I feel like that's sort of Johnny Martin's modus operandi is these quick, 2.5 minute bangers, with some power chords. Like a Drug was a riff I'd been sitting on in a different key for quite a while, and kind of Thin Lizzy esque, Thin Lizzy does Sunset Strip kind of thing. And when I'm turning in songs for the record or records or to the band, I'm usually trying to sort of mold something for what I think would fit LA Guns as an entity. It's a legacy act. And so it's not my role to just be like, yeah, I wrote this random song that sounds nothing like us. Although we've done plenty of that. I say we collectively. I know some people get upset when they consider me a part of the band, but wink. But yeah, when we do stuff collectively, I mean, like look at what was the ballad off of Checkered Past, the first single that came out? I Can Hear It.
That was so good.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. It was like the one that was you guys put out during the pandemic, I think.
Yeah, thank you. I can't remember what it's called. But
I can't remember either, but I remember hearing it and being blown away and thinking this song belongs in a movie. It sounded like it should have been on a movie soundtrack.
Of course, I can't remember what it's called. I can tell you how to play it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up because
please look it up because it'll bother me. But when we did that song, that was super out of left field, and the response was really polarizing, mostly for the positive. And I thought it was great. That was obviously a Tracy composition that he built around a riff when he was just messing with a delay pedal.
Is it Let You Down? Is that
Let You Down? Yeah, thank you.
That's the one. Yeah, that's a great album. That whole album is but especially that song when I heard that I was like, whoa, because it did sound like a little bit of a departure, but it was like a more mature sounding
you
guys got better, I thought.
Thank you. I mean, again, a Tracy composition had minimally anything to do with it, but it's really something mature, progressing. To me, I like a well-rounded album. I like eclectic, like the Clash's London Calling, where every song sounds completely different. And I personally, I like to turn in stuff like that, where it's like, okay, this song might sound like Cocked and Loaded era. This song might sound like a metal song. This song's a 12-string acoustic ballad, and mix it up. Personally, I don't want to hear the same song 11 times in a row.
No, and I agree.
That being said, when it's a band, it's LA Guns, it's going to be Phil and Tracy, et cetera. So it's going to have that sort of throughway cohesiveness. But again, I like to change it up, and I thought that was a perfect example. But that wouldn't be something that I would bring initially to the table. I would be thinking more, again, like the first three records. And so I sent Trace a demo version of what became Like a Drug. I was like, hey, what do you think of this? And he was like, dude, fuck yeah. And I was like, okay, I guess that's going on the album. And I think I sent something else in. And I think by that point, the album was already bookended. And I know that happened with Checkered Past, where I think I sent in 3 songs. I'll tell you off the air for what Checkered Past, the stuff I turned in, I had written for another artist, who we all know is a different genre, but they were rock songs, and she didn't use them. And I was like, okay, well, if I tweak these a little bit, they could be LA Guns songs. One of the 3 ended up being on Checkered Past. Oh. So, talking about Nashville and songwriting and stuff. I mean, all I pretty much do, unless you see me out there pounding the pavement with LA Guns, is write and record at this little station I'm at here, in my office, my nerdy man cave. But yeah, so I'm getting off topic there, but that's really good. No, I agree with what you're saying about the album being eclectic, because there's like songs that are more, there's definitely some Led Zeppelin vibes throughout the album, which I think is really cool. But there's a ballad, there's the punky songs, and then there's the song Crying was also kind of fun. It was like kind of a catchy, almost poppy song, really. And I like the
the different I don't, you're right. I don't want to hear the same song 10 times, especially at
Yeah.
this juncture in your guys' career. Like, you kind of did that on the first album. It's like, you don't want to just recreate that first album, but there's obviously, the Low Life. I think it does sound like the first album. If people like the first album, that's a cool one. I think, one of them sounded kind of Hollywood Vampires-y, Shattered Glass with the second single that's out now. I think
that's
that
a
has
great
kind
one.
of that vibe.
That was a fun one. Yeah, it's an LA Guns album. It's eclectic. You can definitely hear some Zeppelin influence. I don't think anyone has any surprise that that's a big thing for Trace. And I mean, that's the cool thing is we all have a very eclectic palette, and so when we're sort of throwing stuff into the pot to make an album, it shows. And even Tracy, I don't want to give it away, but Tracy was talking about, now I can't even say what band it was, but he was like, oh man, I really love this one band that you'd never imagine. He's like, I want to do a cover of this one song. And I was like, I'm totally into that, but it's the last band you would imagine LA Guns covering. So, and of course, that doesn't even mean it'll happen. That could have just been in that moment that he was all excited about it. But
That would be cool. Especially, I like when bands cover songs that are not their genre, but then they make it their genre. Metallica was famous for this. They cover all the punk songs, but they made them sound more heavy, like metal. And
well, I mean, depending on the, that's a rabbit hole I could dive into. Depending on the band, some of those bands, when you're talking about like Discharge or like the Misfits, Earth AD era stuff like that, was basically proto thrash anyhow. So it's a lot of, or even the Weight from the first Killing Joke record. Wait, is that the Weight? Yeah, anyways, I can't remember. A lot of this stuff is very at the time wasn't what you would call metal or thrash, because that genre almost didn't exist in 1982 or 83 or 85. But when Metallica does, what's the song?
Last Caress, So What?
I'm trying to think of the other Misfit songs. Not Last Caress, not Die Die My Darling, but something off of Earth AD. When they do it, it just sounds like and of course, like, what is it, Green Hell?
Oh yeah,
or something like that.
They do so many great covers. Like, I love. They do the Bob Seger one. They do the old Irish song that Thin Lizzy covered. Like,
yeah. I mean, they definitely make it their own. I just was trying to not give them too much credit for making stuff sound metal when it sounded metal before they kind of got to it, I guess.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of Me First and the Gimme Gimmes? Like, they just do.
Of course, totally. I've toured with them. Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, ages ago, Warped Tour.
Oh, when we were in Unwritten Law or US Ball?
No. I was playing with this old skateboarder guy who's, I'm not going to get into all that, but we were on a Warped Tour for 10 days or whatever.
Oh.
And, I've probably seen Me First and the Gimmes probably like 30 times way back. But I'm not to rant.
That's cool. I've never seen them live.
With their approach to the cover songs. Yeah.
I did not know you played on Warped Tour. That's kind of interesting.
I did 4 years on Warped Tour. I did a year. There's a punk band that's pretty well known in that genre called the Bouncing Souls. And the singer Greg and his wife Shanti, I actually lived with them in the Valley in Los Angeles for about 2 years. I was, 21 or something like that. And then I became her guitar player. This woman, just Shanti, not Ashanti, but Shanti. And we put out a record and did Warped Tour for a month. Joan Jett was on that year, Bouncing Souls, Against Me, a ton of bands. Of course, I don't remember because it's been 17, 18 years. I did another year, maybe a week or so, when I was playing with this guy, Dwayne Peters, the skateboard guy I mentioned. I did a bunch of dates with another band I used to be in. And then I did 1 year where I did about 3 weeks, basically, and I was 22. I did it as crew. Oh, and then I was out again as a crew guy at 19 for maybe like a weekend, 4 or 5 shows with my buddy's band, Agent 51, from San Diego. So different stretches of 5 days, 10 days, 2-3 weeks at a time. But I've had a few stints on Warped Tour in my much younger years.
Yeah.
So
what is that? Anymore. That's got to be crazy being on the Warped Tour. Or is the Warped Tour crazy? Is it compared to like Motley Crue, The Dirt, like those kinds of concerts and stuff? Is it more toned down?
It's crazy just in the fact that if you like bathing, it's not the place for you. I mean, most of the bands on Warped Tour were traveling in vans or, sort of piecemeal vehicles. And, they'd pull into these like parking lots. It was like they would build the stages and everything at like the venues would be, it would be like an arena or something like that, but you weren't playing in the arena. You were playing in the fucking parking lot. The whole point was it was outside. And
Sure.
so, you'd have people getting heat exhaustion and collapsing from the weather. And, you'd go 17 days without seeing a shower. And your best bet was like a Porta John and some hand sanitizer. And it was definitely rough. Separated the you know the road dogs from the weaker folk. And I wouldn't do it at this point in my life.
At this point, yeah.
It's
So
just too arduous. But for 2, 3, 4, 5 days, it's a pretty good time. The really cool thing about it was, you keep in mind at the time when I was doing this, I was like 8. When I went out with Agent 51, I was still in high school, so I was probably 18. So I was doing this from the window that I was personally like 18 to like 24. So I was young. Um, and it was great for networking and just like, getting to hang out with your friends. And it was very much a summer camp kind of thing.
right.
And,
That's what I'm thinking. Like it'd be the equivalent for most people, like going to college. Like that's kind of what
yeah,
college.
it was like punk rock music college. A lot of barbecues, a lot of after parties. I actually was just talking about that to a friend of mine. Maybe the day before yesterday, someone had mentioned the band Alkaline Trio.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and I said, "Oh, I've got this great photo of Matt Skiba, the singer of Alkaline Trio, and then this guy, the Pete, who plays guitar for the Bouncing Souls, and myself, that I think Pete took. You can tell this was back before cell phones had cameras built into them, and he's holding my camera, and we're all, like that." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I think that was one of the last times I saw him was, 16, 17 years ago." But yeah, just it's a great melding pot. They'd always mix it up. Like one year Eminem was on it before he broke, and Andrew WK. I remember being on one of the stretches where Andrew WK was on it before he kind of broke, and just seeing him dumping energy drinks all over himself on stage. And I was like, God, that's got to be miserable to clean up after. You're outside in the heat and you're covered in sticky soda
Yeah.
water. But yeah, so and I think anyone that kind of knows my background or whatever, I come from a punk rock background. Clearly I'm wearing a fucking Subhumans
Yeah.
t-shirt. But
Do you
yeah.
ever wonder if you would have kept going down the punk rock route? Like, I mean, when you joined Faster Pussycat, you kind of took this alternate route and then LA Guns, obviously. But what if you had just stayed punk rock and like turned Faster Pussycat down? I mean, you probably would have found some other punk band, right?
I probably would have ended up just playing in more punk rock bands, but I mean, that's not really true, I guess, because at that point, so when I first went to Tamies in my initial sort of, you know, beginning of what became me working with Pussycat, I was 26, and I had made sort of a, mental note that at about 23, 24, I was like, I don't want to play in these punk bands anymore. I was listening to more rock. I was listening more that I used to say I was listening to less Stiff Little Fingers and more Thin Lizzy and less Discharge and more Danzig and less, GBH and more Guns N' Roses or whatever. And I just was sort of trying to advance as a guitar player, and I wanted to do what I was playing, which was play more not intricate, but more involved, guitar stuff. I was listening to way more Alice Cooper and Kiss and stuff like that. So rock, stuff. And I felt like I had already, even at like 25, I had played in a couple bands that I had like kind of grown up listening to, like Murphy's Law or US Bombs or whatever else. And, I was seeing a lot of these guys that I like looked up to as a kid, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm 56 and I still live with my grandma," and like just stuff like that, and I just was like, man, if I'm gonna do this for real and try to make a living, or continue to try to make a living, I needed to sort of up raise the, up the ante or raise the bar is what I'm trying to say.
Hmm.
And I ended up playing in a project called Charlie and the Valentine Killers. That was kind of a melting pot of guys in LA that were known. Like at one point, Brian Forsyth from Kix was in the band, and
Yeah, Carrie Kelly. I think, yeah, we talked about that one.
yeah. KK was in the band for a minute and had recorded us, and Jerry Montano from Danzig, and blah 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 blah. Which is how I met Chad Stewart from Faster Pussycat. So I was playing with him when I was about 20, I don't know, 25, and at the same time, I was doing a project in LA that was all cover songs, and there were 4 female singers. Okay. And, that turned into 2 other projects, one of which I went with and became another band that we won't talk about. And so I was meeting like rock guys in LA, but between the Charlie and the Valentine Killers gig and the covers gig, which was kind of like basically a Steel Panther metal shop, metal school kind of thing.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of residencies in LA, like the Viper Room and the Dragonfly and the Roxy. Every Wednesday or something like that for like 8 months, I had a residency at the Roxy, which was a really great sort of learning curve. And again, I was like 24, 25. I was a puppy,
Dang.
and that's how I, at the Rainbow every fucking night and all that. But that's how I met all these rock guys. And so I'm sure had I not joined Faster Pussycat, something else probably would have popped up, presumably in that circle or genre or whatever you want to call it. Just because I started sort of meeting a lot of the sort of like 80s rock guys.
Did you have any that you turned down? Like, was there any that bands that reached out that you were like, no?
No, but funny, not directly, but funny enough, at one point, God, how old was I? It was before Pussycat. So let's say I was 25, 26 at the latest. I had this woman that I've known for forever that was like managing me. And Junkyard was looking for a guitar player for a European run. And it didn't work out just logistically. But for a minute, I was talking with those guys. And then coincidentally, in 2 days, I'm actually flying to the Bay Area to DJ and host a VIP event with Junkyard at the bottom of the hill. They're doing their whole first album touring that with the original guitar player Chris Gates, and the promoter, the guy putting the show on, is a buddy of mine, and he was like, even last year, he was like, dude, I want to have you come DJ and blah blah blah, because I used to DJ in Hollywood all over the place for years. That was what I did in between tours. Had a nice little residency kind of gig at a place called Loaded that's no longer there. I must have done for 2 years in between tours. And, the Burgundy Room. And I would DJ events at this bowling alley in Hollywood that's a rock venue as well. I can't remember what it's called, of course, but there was an event with Gene Simmons and Johnny Depp, and I was the like featured DJ,
Wow.
So I mean, did
you do like the mixing? Did you actually like mix the stuff, or you just push play and like?
No. I mean, I would use a console, and then it was basically like whatever the setup was. I used to drag my vinyl around, but it became pretty arduous. So I started using a program that I wish I still had in my computer. I think it was just called DJ, and and it was basically like anything now. It was like taking analog and making it digital. So I would just import all my stuff digitally. If it was something I didn't have, like like Sam Hain or whatever you couldn't get on iTunes, and then I would just do it on the computer. But yeah, so I'm getting way off track here, but I made the rounds, and I networked, and I stayed busy, and I'm sure there were plenty of people that might have hit me up. I just don't remember. I won't say what band it was, but there was a band that's known for having a sort of super technical guitar player from the same genre, or at least era. That the drummer at the time was a friend of mine, and he was like, "Hey, we're auditioning guitar players. Do you want to come audition?" And I was like, "Dude, I can't play that stuff, like all that tappy." I was like, I'm like Johnny Thunders, Mike Ness Slash at the best, stat school. I'm none of this sweep arpeggio, stuff. There's a place for it, but it's definitely not in my wheelhouse. So I've
Yeah.
turned a couple
What
gigs
about
down.
because Alice Cooper recently, Nita Strauss left, and there was like then the old guitar player came back, but there was a brief, and now I think she's back again. But
He's
there
back
was a
now.
brief time where didn't have a guitar player. Like, did you try to reach out for something like that, or send in
No,
a demo or something, or how do you don't even?
no. I mean, that's the kind of thing. Um, if we're
Not that
talking,
you're not happy with LA Guns. I don't want that to be the headline or
no,
anything.
that's.
It's just
I
like
mean,
I'm sure even
no, I
Tracy
love.
and Phil would be like, "You got Alice Cooper." Like they'd be happy for you.
No, I would love to play with Alice, but all my dream gigs from being, a young man are all pretty much they either don't exist anymore or they're so far into their sunset where it's like it wouldn't really like I was thinking about the Cult the other day and I was like, man, it's like at one point I wanted that like rhythm gig and then they hired a buddy of mine, Damon Fox. I don't think he's playing with him anymore, but there was a gear shift where they were like, well, we don't want a guitar player. We want a keyboard player who can play a little bit of guitar. And I was like, oh, okay, that's not even me anyhow. Um, yeah, I just, ultimately, at least in the last maybe year, 2, 3, 5 years, I love my band. I love LA Guns. I love the band that I play in. For those who have a problem with me calling it my band, I love the band that I play guitar in.
Why do people have a problem? Like, is that something that some trolls say or something? Like, people are so mean to LA
Yes, a
Guns.
troll, a troll.
More than one though, more than just a troll.
Yeah, people are miserable, and I'll leave it at that because it's not worth harping on or paying attention to. But yeah,
You get into it with them sometimes, and like I saw one interaction with you go back and forth on Twitter, and I mean it was hilarious. But at the same time, I was like, dude, maybe he should just like block this guy and be done with it.
that's no fun. Most of the time, I don't pay it any. Most of the time, I don't pay it any attention, or I'm too busy, or I just don't care. But if you catch me in the right mood, or I'm not, I mean, I work from home. Like, what do you want? Like, I'm like, yeah, I work today in my pajamas, right where I'm sitting with my dogs. What about you? And so if I open Twitter and someone's like, hey man, fuck you, then I'm gonna go. My first thing is always this. I'm going to go and I'm going to look at their page and I'm going to look, is this some isolated incident? Did I not look him in the eye at the, VIP event? Did I do something here, or are you just a miserable cunt? And more often than not, it's the latter. And there's a certain mindset with people. I got to watch what I say. There's a certain mindset with certain people where that's just what they do. Is like they're going to open blabbermouth and be like, you know, whatever the topic du jour is, they have an opinion on it. And they want you to know. And then when I say you, I mean me. When you, the artist, fires back, you're giving them what they want. They want someone to engage. They want someone to argue with. They want someone to be miserable because that's what they are. And most of the time, I don't give a fuck. There's a guy that insists that I work at Carl's Jr. still. I say still because every time someone shares a blabbermouth article, there's this guy that's like, oh, I bet Ace is still working at Carl's Jr. First of all, I've never worked at Carl's Jr. I don't know if he's referencing my first job as a teenager at Jack in the Box, but maybe. But regardless, I mean that's really hardly relevant by today's standards.
So what? Even if you did, who cares? Like, I'm sure a lot of musicians have to do other stuff to pay the bills. Like,
oh no, I'm not. I mean, fuck. There's nothing. I mean, I got friends that drive Lyft and Uber and work at music stores, and there's no shame in any of that. I mean, fuck. So what if I did work at Carl's Jr. right now? Who gives a fuck?
They pay a lot right now.
It's not about what it is. It's that the guy's trying to demean me.
Right. Exactly.
For what looks like no reason. And I don't know. I don't really want to keep going on about it because it's stupid. But I've had a specific person that was like, you can't call it your band. And I was like, okay, so when I'm referring to LA Guns, how should I word it? How would you like me to word it? You want me to say the band that I play guitar in, that the album that's coming out I'm on with my songwriting? I'm, because and I say, oh yeah, so me and my band were on tour. Oh, it's not your band. Okay. And some people probably know who I'm talking about. Some people don't, and he's not worth mentioning. But
Sure.
just again, stuff like that drives me nuts because it's like, really, this is how you're choosing to spend your time, is focusing on it, on my vernacular.
Yeah.
Really, fucking
Semantics.
really, you're a grown man or woman or whatever, and you're choosing to focus on my wording of the band that I play guitar in. Okay, good for you.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, yeah, that was what I was going to ask you about. I know this isn't really your issue. This is more a Tracy thing, but
hmm?
like I did see the stuff about that where he was having some anxiety issues. And again, you don't need to go into the personal stuff, but I think it was important I invited Tracy to come on the show because I wanted to educate people about what he was going through. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, he's diagnosed with panic disorder, which that is a real thing. And a lot of people have struggled with that. And some people take Xanax. And so the fact that he still wanted to play and he's like, look, I can't be on stage, but I'm still going to play. And
Yeah.
that maybe he wasn't, I'm assuming that he wasn't popping Xanax if he was having to play in the bathroom. I mean, I don't think that's anything to be necessarily ashamed of. I don't think it's something to be proud of, but the fact that people wanted to demean him for that, I mean, that was just.
It could be. I mean, that obviously I could see how on paper would look like something to poke fun at.
Yeah.
When you're playing at 6:45 in the afternoon outside, right as the sun is cresting in front of you, and it is 106 degrees out, and you're maybe on some sort of medication, or you have a whatever that's preventing you from standing there for 50 plus minutes getting cooked in the sun, you can either cancel or you can find an ulterior scenario. And that's what worked for him.
Yeah.
And at the time, we were like, oh man, but we played and he played, and it was what it was. And of course, there are people out there that will make fun of anyone for anything. And unfortunately, it says more about those people than it does about, say, in this instance, Trace. But that's not what's getting clicks or ad revenue for people now, is it? So some people are just miserable, and they would much rather drag you down with them than contribute anything um, worth a shit to society, or let's say the music scene, or
Mhm.
what have you. And it is what it is. And I think as social media has become more prominent, it just becomes more and more, apt to be subject
Yeah.
to stuff like that. I mean,
Well, I think some people ask for it a little bit. They get out there and they do something boisterous or they talk shit, and then people put it, then they talk shit back, and it's like they kind of like started a feud. I mean, I won't mention it. There's a bunch of stuff. I'm sure you can check Blabbermouth right now. There's little feuds going on, but I mean,
I
Tracy was
don't,
going through.
I don't look at it. I don't look
Yeah,
at any of that. And wink, wink. I think there's people that think that I'm sitting there looking at it. I don't remember the last time I opened Blabbermouth. Probably when someone sent me an article about
sure.
our album coming out, and I just
Yeah.
looked to see what the content was.
But it's just
Um,
interesting. You'd think, even if these people are true music fans, I mean, they should know the history with all the mental health and substance abuse stuff that, I mean, you look at the list: Chester Bennington, Chris Cornell. I mean, what if it was something that somebody said to them that led them down a dark path? Like, I just
I
think
think
people should be more careful with that kind of stuff.
I think
Again,
most
it's
of those
different if you're
people
asking for it, but
I think most of those people are so malicious, are so incredibly malicious, that if you said something to someone and they killed themselves, I think they'd be like, well, good. Because that's how horrible a lot of these people are. You got to keep in mind that you're also asking somebody who's, I'm a complete misanthrope. I am not a fan of people. I know this is being recorded, so I got to watch what I say. I
you've
just
said
don't,
that before. I said that in my last episode.
I don't like people. I don't
I
like
know.
people. I don't like,
I don't believe you,
um,
but I understand what you're
I
saying.
just, I
It's a
just,
love-hate relationship.
I feel like I've had so many negative experiences for, unprompted, that it's just made, it's like you were talking about, like doing the RocknPod, like, oh, it's like you don't know what people are going to say to you or come up to you or expect from you, or, you know, um, I'm going to give you a PG scenario. I had a guy at a meet and greet a couple years ago. This is pre-pandemic. I was inside at the venue ordering like a meal, and my tour man, like for lunch, and my tour manager came in and said, hey, it's time to do the meet and greet, everybody's here. And I said, okay, cool. And so I came in, and a guy was stood out as being really like kind of loud and one of 15 or 20 people. And during the meet and greet, he was asking about what I was wearing. And I replied, I said, "Oh, I'm in my pajamas." As in I was wearing like a hoodie and some shorts, and like a hat. Like I wasn't,
Sure.
I think he was implying, like he was like, "Oh, you're going to play, like you're going to play in this." I said, "Oh, no, no, I'm just in my pajamas. It is 3:30 in the afternoon after all." And then he asked me for a guitar pick. And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have one on me. I'm in my day clothes, my pajamas."
Sure.
And I said, "But I'll get you one." And I went over to my guitar tech and I said, "Hey, can you give this guy a guitar pick?" And not 3 days later, he sent some scathing email to management saying how rude it was that I didn't have a guitar pick ready for him, and how dare I show up unpresentable and in my pajamas and all this
You're in
stuff.
a rock band. What is this? Like you work at a bank or some shit?
And
Like,
just all this stuff. And of course,
wow.
management just dismissed it. But it was so infuriating that I was like, man, like, you know, you asked me for a pick, I got you one. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what I did or didn't do, but just stuff like that is this
Huh.
constant. Or like, God forbid, there's any article about, the band or any band or me or you or anything. There has to be a guy in a basement somewhere, or 100 of them, or whatever, that has some snarky, negative, shitty thing to say. And look, man, for every, there's got to be the yin with the yang, and I don't give a fuck. I mean, I've had people call me thin-skinned for years. I don't give a fuck. Just because I respond doesn't mean I give a fuck. It just means you caught me at the moment where I felt like engaging. I know the guy you were referring to, and I told you what happened to him, right?
Yeah, I think so. I feel bad. I don't want anybody.
We're not even gonna get into it. But a guy was randomly trolling me on Twitter maybe 2 months ago.
I was
And I
trying to
went,
find it. I couldn't find it, but I just remember one of the things he said, which I still to this day, it doesn't even make sense. He said, "Oh, it's something you dress like a third grader." And I was like, what third grader dresses like a rock star and has tattoos? And like, I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Third graders dress like very plain when you're a little kid. You're more
I,
elaborate. I don't know. I just didn't understand what he was talking about. It was very
I,
odd.
I don't have the time to dwell on any of this kind of stuff more
The
than
weirdest part though
like
was at the very end.
as it's passing me by.
Yeah, because at the very end, you're right. Because he said about how they have fun with this. Because at the end of it, he goes, "Wow, thanks guys. That was the most fun I've had in months or something." And I was like, "This guy is sick in the head." What?
And then he goes, "Thanks to you, my engagement and my numbers are up." And I'm looking and I'm
Oh, I
going,
didn't see that
"What? You
part.
got like two new followers by trolling the band that I play guitar in?" Okay.
So that's why they do it, to get followers.
I think it's just I ultimately think, like, what's the old expression about press? Any press is good press. I think a lot of these people are just so. I'm trying to be diplomatic here. I think some of these people are just so sad in their own lives that like any attention is good attention.
Hmm.
And I think there's certain like gosh, I think there's certain people out there that their whole persona is just fucking with people.
Yeah.
And I'm really trying to not name names. I think when that garners you attention, whether it's Kip Winger or me or whoever is responding, going, "Hey man, fuck you," then they're going like, "Oh yeah, I'm getting that fix," and that's what their
Yeah.
life is. That to me,
So weird though,
and
because
it,
yeah,
it might, sorry to cut you off, it might spoil my mood for like 30 minutes,
yeah,
but by tomorrow, I don't give a fuck. I don't remember your screen name or what you look like. These
right.
guys are seething, like, how dare Striper put out a new song without the original tambourine player, and it's like, man, that's what your fucking life is, so it is what it is, man.
Yeah,
And I understand that we're I'm sure there's people out there that are like, "That Chuck Shute guy, his podcast sucks."
yeah.
And
I've
a
gotten
lot
some
of
of
this,
those.
I'm not saying all of it or even anything to do with me. A lot of it is just sheer jealousy and vitriol for the fact that you're, Joe Schmo in fucking Duluth, and that's it. And so all you can do is, not that I don't have my, not that I have a problem with Duluth, is that's all you can do is kick a hornet's nest over and over again and hope someone will give you,
Yeah.
that
You'd think though, like I
pushback.
try to be like a positive troll. I try to like write stuff and just be really nice and like write comments. I don't do it as much as I should, but I try to write mostly or all positive comments. Like, wouldn't it be nice to make someone else's day? Like I
Yeah.
always try to reach out to other podcasters if I listen to an interview with a guest I'm having, and I'm like, dude, that was a really good interview. Or like, and you're gonna make, especially a podcaster, we don't get a lot of like praise or anything. So if you reach out to another podcaster and say, hey, that was a good interview, like you just made that guy's day. Like, why wouldn't that feel good to somebody to do
There's
something
God,
nice?
I wish more people had that approach with just anything. And you know
Right?
what? I we're giving too much attention to the like 1 in 10 of these
Yeah.
people that are just fucking
Probably less than that.
jag offs. There are so many great like I hate, it sounds almost derogatory, but there are so many super fans. Like perfect example. I have a Patreon that keeps me busy 7 days a week and kind of gives me incentive to do and create and yada yada.
Yeah.
And so many of these people like I engage with are just so supportive and kind and like, hey, I saw you were networking for this cat in Duluth, and I want to pledge to this rescue and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong. Ricky, you're wearing the cow shirt. Ricky and I talk about this all the time, to stop fueling those people that are like, ugh, and just, yeah, those people are out there and there's nothing you can do about it really, other than point and laugh in private. But
Yeah,
but
because
for
it's more
everybody
of a,
else,
yeah, it's more
what's
than
that?
just music where it's a problem. Like it's politics,
It's
it's all over our society, social
everything.
media,
It's
like you
social
said.
media. It's
Yeah.
social media has enabled everybody to treat everything like a fucking Yelp review. And I have an expression and I live by it. And the expression is, it is what it is. And so you can say whatever you want about me or you or, my dog or what the fuck ever, this politician or this actress or whatever. And it is what it is. That's your opinion and you're entitled to that. And that's usually where it stops. But I think most people, myself included, need to focus more on the positives. And for example, I'm very fortunate in the sense that, I make a living being an artist. I hate that term, but like I play music for a living. People pay me to do cool stuff like the Junkyard DJ set or have a Patreon or play on someone's album or whatever. And I'm fortunate enough that I don't have to work at Carl's Jr. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, fuck. And
Yeah. Oh,
some
that's
of us,
awesome.
should be so lucky, I mean, and I take everything with a giant grain of salt and try to always, this sounds so douchebag cliche, but I try to stay, at least in my own little mind, as humble as possible because I've been fucking homeless before. I've lived in my car and like literally been there, and so I know what it's like to go from that to, like, shopping for a new car. So I'd like to think that spectrum for me personally has allowed me to have a good anchor in what what life is like as a
Gratitude. It taught you
musician.
gratitude, right?
Yeah, I'm grateful every day. I'm grateful that guy goes online and talks shit about me because he's the one talking about me. I don't even know his name.
Right.
So I mean, that's one way to look at it. And at the end of the day, I'm really grateful for the 98% of those people that bought the album or just left a nice comment or like, man, that's cool, or those people. And I need to focus, as I'm doing it in real time, less on the
Right.
2.4% of the people that are like, fuck you and
Yeah.
I don't like that you bleh, and whatever else. But we're all, I mean, you get to do this podcast,
Yeah.
I woke up today, my feet work. I have 3 dogs that I love. I have some great friends, most of whom are here in Nashville. I ate today. It's like those are the things, you know,
No, that's really good. You had a saying.
I walk away being grateful for. I don't give a fuck about internet trolls. It came up and I was like, oh, I have a comment.
No, I know you do. That's why I
It
like
is what
hearing
it
your
is.
rants
And it
too.
comes with the territory. It
No,
comes
and I
with the
think that's
territory
why I
for
do the
everybody.
podcast is to make people aware because, yeah, I mean, when we do a podcast, we can discuss it more. It's not like a social media. I'm commenting on somebody's stuff or it's
Sure.
like we're actually discussing it. This is how people should talk to each other. I mean, preferably more in person than Zoom, but it's pretty close. But social media, when you try to have conversations, it usually goes haywire. But my user saying was, what is it? It is what it is.
It is
My
what it is.
saying, Gandhi quote, be the change you want to see in the world. So I try to like leave more nice comments on people's things because
Yeah.
there's enough bad ones out there.
There's definitely enough. And I
And if
don't
I don't
feel
like
like I'm
something, I just don't say
self-congratulating.
anything because why do they need to hear it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what was it that our moms used to say? If you've got nothing nice to,
Yeah.
don't say anything if you can't say something nice or whatever the fuck it was, and that, that's what my mom used to say. And then on the flip side, my dad, one of the greatest pieces of advice my father ever gave me was literally 2 words. It was fuck them. And I say it all the time. So when
Yeah.
some guy's going, I don't like, blah, 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 and whether it's about me or you or Steve down the street or whatever, I'm always like, well, all right, okay, he said what he said, fuck him, and on with my life. And like even our conversation Friday night, we're talking about some stuff, and I said what I said, and at the end of the day, fuck them, and
Circle
be
of
the change you
trust.
want to. Yeah,
That
it
was a
is.
fun one. Yeah.
It was
Well,
a
you
good one.
guys is
Be the
awesome.
change you want to see, though. I mean, like if you love, to me, it's like if I love a band or I love an actor or I love a comedian or painter or whatever, and I see their stuff, literally a painter, and I'll be like, man, that's amazing. And if I see a painting of that artist and I go, well, that sucks. I'm not gonna write, well, that's hit. It's like, what? Why are you even,
Right.
art is
Yeah.
subjective, and it's like you might not like it, but somebody out there probably does.
Yeah.
So,
Or like in sports when they say like, you suck or whatever, it's like when they lose the game, it's like, okay, clearly they lost. Like, I'm sure they're upset about it. Why do you need to comment? I don't know. It gets silly.
again, everybody thinks that their life is a Yelp review, and of course, everyone's got an opinion. And it's like, oh, this guy lost that match or game or whatever, fumbled a touchdown, or I don't know. I don't do sports. Dropped the
Right.
golf ball. It's of course you can be like, what a jerk, But like, you don't need to go online and be like, I gotta at the team. It's like nobody cares. Like everybody's got an opinion, man, and unless you're like the coach or the guy that's hiring the team players or whatever, it's like, all right, so you're mad that the guy lost the game or whatever, like, and like, are you also a professional athlete? This is a good example. Are you a professional athlete?
Right.
Oh, you're not. Oh, okay, so your opinion is valid in this industry. Why? Oh, because you have one. Oh, okay, great. Well, so everybody else has an opinion. And here's another piece of advice my father said. He goes, opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one, and they're usually full of shit.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Perfect.
again, you're entitled to say I suck or this sports team blows or whatever, but like, what are you contributing? Are you actually contributing anything? All right, and I wish more people were just a little less hostile in their approach to things, because I might watch a game, be like, oh wow, I can't believe that guy lost the match. I'm not going to be like, hang on, I got to go on Twitter. Right. I got to let someone know I'm mad that Steve Jones fumbled the football. It's very important. It's like, don't you have anything better to do with your day? Go put on a record or like have a piece of pizza, man.
Yeah. Have you ever seen those videos of the people like throwing their TVs out the window, like when their team lost the Super Bowl and stuff?
Dude. I mean, only way
I hope those are staged because nobody can be that mad.
Is if you had like a massive amount of money riding on a sports thing, but otherwise, it's like, get over yourself, man.
Yeah.
Anyhow, that's enough of my TED talk.
That was fun.
People need to be kinder. I think that's really the takeaway from my rant. If anyone's even
absolutely, and for the people who are fans,
it's not going to kill you to be kind.
Yeah. For the people who are fans, you guys have a new album, and then you have a few tour dates, a couple California shows, and here in Arizona, which I'm going to try to go to. It's in Mesa. I've never heard of this Mesa Music Festival, so that should be exciting.
Yeah, I think it's a new thing.
Okay. Probably outdoors, I'm assuming.
It is indoors. I know it's like
it's indoors
within. I believe so. I think.
Okay.
I'll try.
That'd be perfect weather for outdoors in April. Right. April's amazing here.
Well, I mean, either way, I mean, the band, the vehicle stops, and I get out and shuck and jive, and indoor, outdoor.
how do you stay fresh without getting sick of being I mean, you've been playing these songs for how many years? Like, is it just working with other artists and other projects? Like, because I think you're doing something with Electric Frankenstein guys and an
Yeah.
Australian guy and like some other stuff like that too, right?
Yeah, actually, I'm doing a punk rock super group with some friends, I think.
Wow.
That's a TBA as far as who's in it.
Really?
But
I'm intrigued.
yeah, I just wait, go ahead.
I'm intrigued about the punk rock. You can't say anything about it though.
I don't want to say anything about it until there's at least something tangible to say.
Okay.
I literally got a text about a week ago that was like, "Hey, guess what?" And I was like, "Huh?" It was like, "You're in a band with so and so and so and so and so and so." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And like, "We're waiting to hear if so and so will play drums." And I was like, "Cool. I like these people. I like these bands." And of course, these are people I've known for a lifetime, so it's not like, I'm taking it like a joke. But
Would it just be like a one album, kind of like a studio band, or would it? Okay.
I'll tell you when I know more about it.
All
Probably,
right.
with the way things are now, technology wise, we'll probably do an album and maybe some shows, but who knows? You know, you're not, again, talking about touring. You don't have to pay me to get on stage. I love playing. I play every day if I could, but it's not that part that you have to pay me for. It's the travel. It's the travel and the being away from home and the sleeping on a you know a bag of bricks or whatever. That's the anyone who's toured knows, that's the arduous part. But as far as keeping it fresh, I mean, the cool thing about LA Guns is there's no shortage of music. I don't know how many albums the band in all inceptions has released, at least 15 or so. I don't know. And it is a really cool legacy to be a part of. And this is my I guess technically my third full length, if you count the live album. And yeah, to keep stuff fresh, changing the set list, it really just depends on the venue and the audience for me. I mean, if I play a show every day and the audience is super pumped and excited, then that's enough for me. Um, there's probably two or three songs in the set, like any band, where I'm like, oh God, I got to play this one again. But even some of the stuff, it's, playing with Tracy and Phil is always an interesting thing because, there's so much like energy on stage and, just interacting with Trace or, throwing a shoulder into Phil or whatever. I mean, it's hard not to have a good time playing with these guys. And I'd like to think that translates on stage, if you come to a show. And
Yeah, no, I've seen you guys, and then you feed off of that, right? Because then the crowd's
yeah,
like into it, even if it's song maybe not your favorite. If everyone's like pumped for it, like that's got to give you a little bit of a high.
of course, and that's the difference. Like if we walk into rehearsal, we're playing Electric Gypsy at rehearsal, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay. But then you're doing it on stage with an audience and for real, then it's like, oh yeah, okay, there it is, So it it changes every day. And I mean, there's been shows where it could have been the best show of my life and something goes wrong, and it's very in flux at all times, and that's live rock and roll.
Sure.
It's like that's why there's mistakes or stuff gets unplugged or someone jumps on stage and grabs a mic or there's a fight in the audience or whatever. I mean, it's always exciting, and I don't mean that specifically, but I mean,
Keeps it interesting.
keeps it interesting. You don't know what you're going to get, So
And will you guys be playing new songs? And
yeah,
I'm assuming like one or two, or like is it?
yeah, we're talking about doing at least adding a few into the mix. Whether that'll mean we'll play all of them each night, I can't imagine. But again, who knows? Usually, I guess Tracy usually picks a set, but we usually have some input. I've lobbied for a few songs to get added back.
Really, newer ones or older ones?
No, mostly older ones.
Really?
Yeah, we took a band vote on what we would play off the new album. Actually, several people, myself not included, lobbied to do Like a Drug, which I thought was cool.
That's super cool.
We'll see if it happens.
Okay.
But that and when, for example, when Waking the Dead got issued on vinyl maybe 2 years ago for the first time, I was the one that was like, yo, we should play songs off this because now people are getting it again.
Mm.
And so we re-added uh, maybe Hellraiser's Ball and fuck, I don't know what it's called. I can tell you how the guitar riff goes. Um, there's a song on there early, and it might open the album. What song opens Waking the Dead? It's got a very Papa Roach, Last Resort kind of riff.
Is that is that like the last one that they did before they broke up for a while?
Yeah, maybe, but it's a real, in my opinion, it's a really strong album from LA Guns as an entity. And
Is it
so,
City of No, don't look at me that way.
don't look at me that way. Great song. If you're an LA Guns fan, you should check that song
I
out.
think I want to say yeah, because I remember last time I saw you guys, I think you played that one or you played one of the songs from that record, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I didn't really remember that record.
We might have played that. We might have played that because
Yeah.
it's been in and out of the set list. So yeah, I mean, I'm always trying to, think, of course, as the band, you're like, we got to play a bunch of the new stuff. And then as the fan, you're like, I hope they don't play a bunch of the new stuff.
It
So,
depends on how big of a fan. See, I like Checkered Past. I like this new album. I like hearing the new stuff. Now, if it's a band that I'm more of a casual fan of, then yeah, I just want to hear the
yeah.
songs that I know. But
But
I'm
you got to figure the average fan is a casual fan. And I don't mean us, I mean every band in general. Like if I go see Subhumans, I want to hear the first couple albums.
It depends though, because if it's like what is it, Mesa Music Fest, where you guys are like probably the only band, they're probably a fan of you guys, so you want to hear more of the deep cuts. But now if it's a thing where it's like you're playing with Skid Row and Winger and like a bunch of other ones, then yeah, maybe like most of the audience isn't there just for you, so they just want to hear the hits.
You got to clobber them with the hits. Yeah, I mean, you want to keep the set a bit mixed, but also, lean on the singles and the popular songs. Like it would be weird if the band didn't play Never Enough, Electric Gypsy, Ballad of Jane, Rip and Tear, some of the sort of obligatory stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I forgot what my point was.
Talking about the set list and playing the average fan maybe doesn't want to hear a bunch of the new songs, but I think sprinkling them in is cool.
Yeah,
keeps it fresh.
Yeah, I agree.
And if fans don't like it, that's when they can go get a drink.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you guys get a part of the bar tab ever? Is that still a thing or no? Now the bars are trying to take part of the merch table. I heard that. I guess that's been a thing that's been going on a while. That's crazy.
That's been going on as long as I've been touring. Is a cut.
Same.
I don't understand that, but because to me it's like, well, the venue's not making any money if the band doesn't perform there. In theory, the band could perform elsewhere. So you're getting a cut of our merch. Why? And yet you're selling alcohol and food and pretzels and whatever. We don't get a cut of that. That's fair. But why do you get to put a hand in our kitty? Makes no sense to me.
Yeah, because then that would just encourage you to not sell merch, because to tell people to get it online.
No, what it encourages, I should say forces our hand, and I say our meaning just touring musicians, is it makes us raise the rate. So it's like, okay, if a t-shirt's $20, but you guys want 10%, well, at this venue it's $25.
Okay.
So it's just all these bullshit industry things that have become standardized that really shouldn't be, and I could go on a whole other 90-minute talk about why the music industry is designed to fuck everybody but to only fuck the artist.
And not in a fun way, but
no, not in a fun way,
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, from publishing to album sales to merchandising to touring, we're traveling t-shirt salesmen. And that's really what it's kind of turned into, which is why you see more VIPs and meet and greets and package tiers and outsourcing things like Patreon and all these other things, because it's not 1991 anymore. And there's no, $500,000 record advance anymore and things like that. And when you go out and go on tour, that's what I tell people all the time. I'm like, so if you have a favorite band, you should support that band, buy their shirts, buy their CDs, buy their whatever it is, the calendar, the sticker, the button.
Coffee. Some of them are doing coffee. I think Ricky's got a coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, and stuff like that. Physical media is a lot of the ways that some of these artists are able to sustain, because the industry has changed so much in the last 15, 20 years. And it seems like for the better for the consumer, but much for the worse for the people actually creating the art. So, that's a whole other talk unto itself. But yeah, if you like a band, go buy their album and their shirt and their hoodie and the hat because they'll appreciate it.
Definitely. Well, and I think, yeah, I mean, I think bands are getting more creative with the meet and greets and the other merch and stuff like that. I think some of the merch can be really cool, like especially to get people to buy the album. If they do some sort of VIP, like vinyl, comes with a t-shirt, kind of, cool. I think D. Snyder had like some cool like CD that came with like a wooden box. Like it's a pretty cool way to present his album.
You gotta keep the fans invested. And I'm going to show you this real quick. This is what I keep looking over and laughing at. Can you see the tongue?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I'm distracted by my old man here is passed out with
and that's
out.
Normal.
Sometimes, but yeah, I mean, I'm a fan. I'm still a fan. Everything in my life is. I mean, I'm surrounded. There's 1,200 pieces of physical media behind me.
Yeah.
And if prime example, Subhumans, old British punk rock band, super important politopunk band from the UK from the early 80s. They put out a box set on vinyl with everything from the inception of the band to the first breakup in like 88 or something like that, right? And it was like limited, and it came up, and I was like, bought it immediately, and it sold out within like a matter of hours. And so doing stuff like that and thinking outside of the proverbial box for creating stuff, I hate to sound so blasé about it, but for the consumer, for the fan, is a way to keep your business going. And whether it's not only just putting out a new album, but like a deluxe version, a signed version, a meet and greet version, the album and a button and the shirt version, and so you have to keep doing stuff like that, to keep your audience engaged. And not unfortunately, but it's no longer like it maybe was 20 years ago or 40 years ago, at least 20 years ago when I got into the music industry sort of professionally, where you'd put out an album and you'd tour and you'd make some money and you'd go back and you'd work on another album and you make some money and you'd go out. It's a little more business savvy. You have to be a little more business savvy now, because otherwise, if you're just putting out your album, I put my album on Spotify, like you and 100 million other artists of all genres. So you gotta be a little more. There's a bit more entrepreneurship required nowadays, and I'd like to think, as I self-congratulate, I'd like to think that at times that's something I've gotten pretty good at. I mentioned the Patreon and things I've done over the years, where there was like roadie for a day or different merchandise aspects where.
Yeah, you have some cool shirts. Like, isn't it? Didn't you have the shirt that just said like "Who the fuck is Ace Von Johnson" or something like that?
Yeah, I did that. That was just a nod to the Mick Jagger thing. I just thought it was funny. That was sort of me taking the piss. And if there's one thing I'm good at, it's self-deprecating. But because who the fuck am I, right? And so I just thought it was funny, and I put it on. I have a thing that's a merchandise thing with Teespring, where it's just you can pick, like, if you want it as a coffee cup or a flag or a sticker, and I upload the artwork. And if you, as the fan or whatever, want that, then you can purchase it, and it comes from a third party. And then I put it up there, just like anything, and just was like, yeah, someone buys it, they buy it. If they don't, they don't. It is what it is. And I started seeing them at shows repeatedly. I was like, okay, I guess that's a good one. So
that's cool.
Yeah, but you have to do stuff like that to stay not relevant, but to keep your fans invested and keep the lights on. That's the expression. It's like Seriously. You can't just play the guitar and show up and do the gig. There's a lot more involved. And
well, you can, or somebody's got to be doing the business thing. And do you guys have a manager?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. We're with Tim Heine, and who manages Tom Kiefer as well.
Oh, nice.
And unfortunately, off the top of my head, I'm drawing a blank on the management organization. But yeah, and that's strictly pertains to LA Guns as an entity, whereas I'm sort of my own business, etc. But sure. Yeah, and I think my coffee's starting to wear off now.
I hear you. Well, yeah. Well, here we'll wrap up. I know you got to get ready for the tour and
Yeah.
stuff. The new album's coming out. Is it now? I think they changed the date from April 14th to August. Is that right or no? No, it's April 14th still.
Uh, that's news to me.
Why did I
Um,
think that? Maybe I just misread it. So April.
the only thing I can think of that you might be thinking of is that the vinyl won't be available
That's
until
what it was. Yeah, yeah. So
because all the vinyl plants are backed up for ages.
which is
Most
a good sign. So that's
Yeah, I mean,
selling.
what was it? I forgot what they said. Something last year, like 2022, was the first year that vinyl outsold CDs
Sure.
since like 1985 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I believe it. I don't remember the last time I bought a fucking CD. I really don't. Oh no, that's not true. I bought a CD from a band I really like called Unto Others.
Yeah, I heard you talking about them.
I'm a
It's a
big
newer
fan.
band, huh?
Yeah, newer band out of the Pacific Northwest, sort of somewhere between Metallica, Killing Joke, type O negative, doomy, catchy goth metal rock. I don't know what they are, but they're awesome and
Okay.
big fan of theirs. So they reissued their first album, and I was like, well, I've got it on vinyl. Might as well buy it on CD so I can play it in the car. And so I did, supporting my favorite artist, right? And yeah, but I'm not a big CD guy or a lot of vinyl though.
Cool. Very cool. Well, there's that. And then, of course, we always promote your Pitbull charities. I think there was several that we mentioned last time. I can put those same links in the show notes if people have
Sure.
some extra money.
Yeah,
The one of
Nashville,
them was like the with
Humane,
Linda
Cannabis
Blair or
Kits.
something.
I could
What's
keep
that?
going. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Chuck. I was talking over you.
Oh, no, I was talking over you.
No, it's okay.
No, I was just
What were
saying.
you saying?
Well, I remember I was because I just re-listened to our old episode, and I think you mentioned one of the charities like Linda Blair's charity, and there's a couple other ones. So
Yeah, Linda Blair's World Heart Foundation. God bless her. She's a wonderful human being and does a lot of advocacy and rescue stuff. She's in the California area and she has some property, and so she does a lot of hands-on work, and she's just a saint. But yeah, there's so many rescues out there. I mostly usually find myself telling people, I go, look, whatever city you're in, find if you're a cat person, or you're into opossums or whatever, excuse me, furry critter floats your boat, find a rescue in your area and see, reach out. I actually reached out to an organization here in the Tennessee area, just south of Nashville, about doing some transport, which I'll be doing probably in May. And just they say, go here and pick up this animal and drive it to this other, usually like not a compound, but like a facility somewhere else, and such, which I've done before, is really rewarding. And I just tell people to find something in your area, and it can be as sending $5 a month. If you get 100 people that do that every month to the local organization, it's $500 a month. So it all adds up. And I did a thing in the end of the year called Choose a Charity, and I auctioned, whatever the word is, and I had a guitar that I signed, and I drew a name out of a raffle, I guess, and I tallied it up, and it was basically, I think the bottom rung was $25 or $50. I can't remember, but if you donate X amount or more, you're entered into this raffle to win this guitar. And I tallied up all the donations of, I don't know how many people it was, maybe like 80 or 90 people, just shy of 100. And it was over $22,000. So
wow.
that went out across all platforms. And it wasn't just animals. It could be any charitable organization of your choosing. Choose a charity, right?
Yeah.
And so there were a lot of like St. Jude's and cancer research and children's hospitals and all kinds of wonderful organizations. And then a lot of rescues as well. There was one guy who donated, I can't remember, like thousands of dollars. And I'm assuming it was probably just like his end of year tax write-off. But I was like, hey, man, and it had to be dated from the date that I announced it on. You couldn't be like, oh, I donated in March. It didn't count.
Okay.
So I think that was around Thanksgiving, and I ended it on my birthday, which was December 27th. So I basically gave everyone a month. I said, if you donate in this window for this much or more, you're entered. And so, yeah, we raised over $20,000, and this woman, Joanna, I can't remember her last name, doesn't matter, donated repeatedly and kept, I'd open my email and it was like 3 new emails. She's like, she asked, she said, if I donate $100 here, does that count? And I said, sure. And so, so she just kept it was like buying raffle tickets. And she, no surprise, I think she entered 20 times or something absurd, in a good way, and won this guitar. And then I had another guy who was a runner up as well. And so I'll probably do that again this year. Again, I don't want to sit here and be self-congratulating, but
no, it's cool though, because I follow you on Twitter.
I try to stay busy with stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff like
you're always
that.
Retweeting the Pitbulls and stuff. Like, I mean, you practice what you preach, I guess is what I should say. So it's cool to see.
Well, I'm trying to not be self-deprecating at the moment, but for all the things I hear about myself, it is what it is, right? So I try to pay it forward as much as I possibly can, sometimes to my own detriment. I don't. So I was at the perfect example. So Saturday I was at the convention, and I sold some merch, and I donated, I don't know, 60% of what was sold to Nashville Humane. It wasn't a lot, but it was over 100. It was like 100 and change. And I didn't have to do that. I wasn't obligated to do that, but that was just what I thought. If you're going to buy something from me, at least it's going to something rather than, my bar tab or whatever, right?
Hey, I bought you a shot. You got that for free. I was paying it forward.
God, geez, I don't know how many drinks I had on Friday, 6, 7, 8 maybe, but I probably only paid for 3 of them. But that's not what we're here to discuss. But just for someone who thinks poorly of himself, I am constantly trying to at least influence other people to do nice things. So
I might be
super
nice to me,
but if I can help some animals along the way, at least I've got that going for me.
Yeah, you helped you helped me. You came on my show early when I started the show. You followed me on Twitter and retweeted the episode. I was kind of blown away because a lot of people don't do that, so you took the time to share it. That helped out a lot. So I appreciate it.
Of course. Well, I appreciate your friendship, Chuck, and appreciate you always sticking up for me, and getting to talk with you is always a treat. So
once again, the new LA Guns album Black Diamonds drops on April 14th, or it may already be out depending on when you're listening to this. So I've heard the whole thing, and it's a great eclectic mix of rock, and I think there is something on there for everyone. So make sure to support the band and Ace by following them all on social media. Check out Ace's Patreon if you haven't already. And as I mentioned, his Twitter is a great follow. He practices what he preaches, and he shares a lot of the posts about rescuing pit bulls. So if you want to support the show, you can follow us on social media, like, share, comment, all that good stuff. And if you want to go above and beyond, giving us a rating or review wherever you listen or watch will really help us. And of course, make sure you subscribe to the show if you haven't already done that. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and shoot for the moon.